Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We are going back to that horrible world known as the JRC. First, disclaimers, and we're going to make them quick. I have a stuffed nose. God knows, for whatever reasons I can't explain, I can only call it sensory issues. When I have a stuffed nose, suddenly, literally doing everything somehow becomes extremely difficult. So let's try to get through this as quick as we can possibly make feasible. If you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, all pertinent links are right there in the description box, including Neuroclastic's article where they interviewed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. The article that scared the JRC so much they threatened them with a defamation lawsuit. We also have linked in there their GoFundMe just in case, because unlike the JRC, us poor advocates, whether singular with ASAN or in other small or larger groups, are not made out of money. So any assistance, if you could help them in any way you can, we'd definitely appreciate it. Trigger warnings when we discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys. You're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips or surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please make sure to utilize the headphones. Also, this channel is marked not for kids for a very obvious reason. We use profanity and speak on dark subjects. If your kid is 16 and younger and watching this, parental supervision is very much advised. Now, excuse me. I am very stuffed up, so you're going to hear a whole lot of throat noises. If you have sensory issues, you're one of my autistic folks, please know that in advance. I'm so sorry. I can't edit these videos to save my life, and some of these are kind of like weird vocal tics I have. When I'm stuffed up and make weird noises in the back of my throat, I'm going to stop talking before I dig the hole any deeper. So, let's go where we went to yesterday. So we went through the first sentence where it discusses the fact that he got sent EL into JRC at the age of 19. I reiterated again, because that's what the JRC always does, about how they want you to be absolutely sure that none of the other programs or medications did anything to stop the scary behaviors. Considering that there was only literally 2 medications that they listed that actually had anything whatsoever to do in regards to assisting the poor kid with his behaviors. The rest of them were for epilepsy, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and an actual sedative for the points where the kid just really couldn't control it. That kind of medication is not something, folks, that we take on a daily basis. That is a medication that is prescribed when the very serious situations come up where there is no way to get the behavior under control except by sedative. Okay? It is not something we take on a daily basis. And by the way, I'm still not over them listing sedation as a side effect when one of the medications is actually a sedative. Like, what crack are you smoking? If you take a sedative, it's going to sedate you. Somebody get them the Nobel Prize. Holy crap. I'm not even feeling that great, and it literally still does sound just as stupid as when I'm doing perfectly fine. It might actually sound worse. I'm at least a little bit more annoyed than usual. But anyways, so they take you to list through the interventions. We went over that a little bit yesterday, explaining once again that if you do not have the pertinent information that is gleaned from having done a full functional behavioral assessment, yes, even the early archaic versions of said assessment, it should be no great shock to you or anyone that no matter how highly rated the schools, the programs, or institutions are, that they didn't work for the kid. That's kind of how it works. When you're sending a kid somewhere and you are not giving the doctors, the nurses, the clinicians, or the direct care staff any kind of information in regards to what could be possibly triggering those behaviors so they can do this, what is it that they call it? Oh yeah, that's right, their job. It's not that hard to figure out. People are not psychic. They can't just look at your child and say, well, obviously they have this behavior and this is what we need to do off of no information. So again, this is not the fault of the service providers. It's not the fault of the parents. And it sure as hell not EL's fault that none of those treatments or the 2 medications that actually are prescribed in regards to behavior didn't work. The fault lies on the people who should have been helping these poor parents navigate the service system correctly. The Massachusetts state are the ones here, in my opinion, that very much dropped the ball. Okay? Stop victim blaming the kid for things that they do not have any form of control over. Stop blaming service providers when you send the kids in there and provide them with absolutely jack squat in regards to information to help them deal with the issues they're needing assistance with. Stop blaming the parents because, quite frankly, folks, they're going in this blind like everybody else. Parents do not have an inherent information, that enters their brain from the minute their kid gets their diagnosis, so they know exactly what type of treatment program their kid's going to need. Okay? It's not how any of this works. These parents were failed on every single level. The service provider was failed on every single level. EL was failed on every single level because nobody helped those poor parents navigate through the service system correctly. So, for the love of God, JRC, for the love of God, stop with the nonsense. Stop justifying the horror that you inflict on people like me every day, saying that, well, obviously it's our fault, or it's the medicines, or it's these people who don't understand. No, duh, they don't understand. If you don't have that assessment done, are you joking right now? For people who should have been a part of the service system, an active provider for multiple years, you all know if you don't have any preliminary information gleaned from the proper assessment being done, that more than likely whatever intervention you're putting that poor kid into has not a chance in hell of being successful. Because the people you are sending them to are not given any information. Okay? You're playing Russian roulette with a child's medical, psychological care. Okay? Stop with the nonsense. Stop with listing all the behaviors providing zero context. Stop listing all the medications out in the long line for the means of shock value, especially when you're dealing with someone like me who has worked in the field, recognized many of those medications, and could point out that in actuality, out of all the medications that you listed for this particular student, only two of them had anything to do regards to helping him deal with self-injurious behavior and aggressive behavior. Okay? I am not stupid. I have both acted in my capacity as a neurodivergent right advocate, an overall disability rights advocate, a people first advocate, as well as worked within the service system, act on a mentor to mentor basis, still act in different areas as a consultant in regards to vocational rehabilitation, and in particular in transition age programs where a kid goes from high school into secondary class school or into employment. Please spare me the monotonous, never-ending lies and bullshit. I am not getting any younger. Almost 20 years of the same crap would drive anyone insane. Please stop insulting everyone's intelligence and causing more poor trees to be felled to print your stupidity. Spare us, for the love of God. Sorry, not sorry. We went through the medicines. We went through the interventions and why none of those would work, because if you don't know where the problem areas are, how in the hell are you supposed to come up with a cohesive treatment program and plan to address them? You know, okay? This is why I call it such horrible attempts at character assassination and victim blaming. If you spent 2 seconds inside this field, you know it's nonsense. Alright, after E.L.'s father tried the GED device on himself, he determined the pain was insignificant compared to the terrible injuries his son was inflicting on himself and the physical effects that E.L. suffered on psychotropic medications. Is it E.L.'s father or is it E.L. that is going to be condemned to have that device strapped on him? Day after day, week after week, year after year, agonizing minute after agonizing minute. As being one of the last generations that had to deal with corporal punishment, I can tell you that most of us could endure even some pretty painful spankings or get the belt relatively well because it was short. It hurt like hell, it healed up. There wasn't someone following us every single day with a belt ready in their hands to strike at any time. Okay? The GED device means that somebody else that is literal, connected to their body's constant psychological threat. Speaking as an autistic who went through absolutely horrific shit as a kid, when you have a constant threat that hangs over your neck at all times, and you spend every single moment of your then life living in fear of when the next fist was going to come down or the next shock is going to come. Do you really think that that made it easier to pay attention to my schooling? Or did it make it extremely difficult? Ask yourself this question. If you have a threat of violence to be struck somewhere on your body, somewhere, all the time, all hours of the day, and you live with that psychological terror and massive anxiety every single day, are you going to be better able to pay attention to the lessons going on at class? Or are you going to be preoccupied trying to do whatever you can to avoid getting shocked? I mean, sincerely, logically, think about it. There's a reason why when I went through the second grade the first time, I actually failed. I failed. In spite of being intelligent, in spite of having 186 IQ, tested out of the park, folks. Because of what was happening at the time, because of my stepbrother, and that constant fear that I lived with every single day, where I just knew the moment I got out of school that I was going to get hurt, I was going to be forced things I didn't want to do, and that there wasn't a damn thing I was going to be able to do about it. And that lived in my head throughout the entirety of the 8-hour school day. So yes, my grades tanked. And I had to do the second grade twice because of it. Okay? That's how threats of violence work. And in regards to the parents, neurotypical parents, particularly conservative parents, always seem the ones who scream the most about what they know and common sense and da 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 da. But at the same time are the biggest swallowers of propaganda I have ever seen. And not only do they consume it, they internalize it and believe it with their whole soul as though it was engraved as a part of the Ten Commandments. I live on the Bible Belt, folks. Believe me, I know. One of the many reasons I don't mind being antisocial. Just saying. For real. Okay? And usually they are the ones of saying, well, I tried the thing on me and it didn't hurt. Parents, do you think that the JRC is actually going to allow you to test that device on the highest setting in the chance that it may turn you off from the school and they lose that $250,000 revenue they can count on because of your kid? Can we be honest for 5 minutes? Do you think that school, who is going to make $250,000 per year off of your child attending that school, do you really think that when they put that device on you, that they are actually going to allow you to experience it at the level that your child is going to be experiencing it? Because if you actually believe that, if you really actually believe that, I hope your kids get yanked from your care. This is your kid. Their health care and mental health is your responsibility. You are their only line of defense against opportunist, evil, greedy bastards like the JRC, whose entire story is so shady and so dark. It's a horror story that is unfortunately real and still continuing. Okay? Now, let me also bring up another topic. But the pain from their self-injurious behavior was way worse than the shock. Let's bring a little bit more logic into that particular comment, shall we? Shall we just? Okay. Some of my self-injurious behavior did some damage. I'm not going to sit there and lie and tell you that it didn't, especially back here where I can feel where I slammed that hairbrush down over and over with all my strength at the time, because there's little areas there I can still feel. Okay? Now let me tell you the difference. As dark as it is, I was the one causing the pain. So there is kind of a false sense of control there. Here's the thing. When I do those things, it was due to a particular trigger being tripped. Unlike being strapped with the GED, that trigger was not getting tripped all the time. So although it was horrifically painful by the time I came out of that meltdown haze where I would do those sort of things to myself, it's not something that I lived under constant threat of. Okay? Horrifically painful for a moment. It heals up and goes away. It doesn't hang over my head like the sword of Damocles. Okay? Now, parents, let's talk about this shock device here. In contrast, your kid, you're consenting to have them being put on a human shock collar. A human shock collar that has knowingly sent multiple kids into emergency rooms. To the point that back in 2002, Andre McCollins was hit so many times in succession for over such a long period of time with the electricity at such a high rate that he had second and third degree burns all over his body. And he went catatonic for 2 months. He went from someone that could eventually graduate onto something like Crowhaven like I did in assisted living, and now he has to be a part of the state system for the rest of his natural born life. So you tell me, JRC. You tell me. Is it worse? How about the 6 dead kids whose deaths the school has caused? Parents, you should read up on those stories. Every single one of them has to do with kids being punished for behaviors, when in actuality, they were acting in vocal distress to something going horribly wrong with their health. Because not only was the pain ignored and not even looked into, but they were punished for speaking out of turn. And only after a series of days and multiple punishments were they taken to the hospital where they died. So EL's father, you tell me, is that worse? Because I'm going to say yes. Yes, it is. Being dead is a hell of a lot worse than whatever damage I managed to do in meltdown to my head as a kid. Because I'm still here. Okay? Those kids are not. Ask their parents if they think the price that not the parent, but the kid pays is worth it. Go ahead. All right? Everyone knows damn well that the JRC has a very vested interest in not giving parents the real, actual picture of what that device does, what it's actually used for, and how really painful it actually is. They put it on its lowest setting. The setting their kids are never going to experience it on. And it still hurts. And let me make this more detailed here. If you are a doctor in mental health or healthcare, you take an oath to do no harm. The JRC has used things, but in surgeries, they give you anesthesia. They don't leave you sitting there in pain on purpose, nor do they cause you to have physical pain on purpose. That's what you, JRC, do. So no, I am not impressed with EL's dad not wanting to look at this logically and say, well, obviously, that little sting, I'd rather him suffer that than what he's doing with the self-injurious behavior. Because first off, you don't know what that kind of treatment can do to a kid over a long period of time. This kid has been here since 19. He is 55 years old. He has never been transferred out. He has never transitioned to adult services. Do you guys have any idea the type of psychological damage that has been done to that poor guy? All right, before I go off more, folks, I'm going to go ahead and sign out for a minute. And then, take my little nozzle spray. Then we'll do a few more videos. We don't get very many views on this channel, and the few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So, folks, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, And please don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. As always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. I'll see you again here in a few minutes. Bye-bye, everyone.